Video games are pretty fun, but you know what would be cooler? If there was a game within a game. With the interactive medium expanding and breaking new grounds within the last few years, developers have taken the opportunity to add entire sections of gameplay to mix things up. Minigames can be pretty fun, mostly seen as a distraction that's added in as a harmless bit of optional content. These small diversions can add quite a bit of character to any title that includes them. Depending on the game itself, it might even be as fun as the full-size experience that it was attached to. And here's my list of the best minigames that I could find from the many games that I've played. And with all that said, let's get started. A Short Hike is a cute little platformer where you play as a bird person attempting to climb a mountain. A staple career of most indie game protagonists. You get up the mountain by doing a series of activities around the area to unlock feathers, making the most difficult part of the game far more manageable. Who knows, you might even make a few friends along the way. There's a good amount of activities to do on this not-so-short hike, from collecting shells to foot racing, and any other activity you can think of. However, the one that stood out to me was the fully fledged fishing minigame. After getting the fishing rod, you can go to several bodies of water all around the local area to catch some fish. You can even trade said fish for some coins, which is a nice extrinsic reward. And there's a good amount of rare fish to find around this game, and that's a good intrinsic reward for whenever you find them. Overall, just a nice thing to have. Forgotten Lands was a fantastic transition into 3D, with very little being lost in translation. This also includes the side content that the Kirby series is known for. The arena and all the tense battles that come with it are pretty fun, but I usually like to mess around with the minigames. The one where you serve Waddle Dees during rush hour was pretty fun, though it reminds me of how frustrating it is to deal with customers in real life. And I'm gonna be honest, though, the fishing minigame was right up my alley. It's a pretty relaxing experience when our titular puffball sits down to catch some fish in a variety of sizes. They range from little guppies to big boys to massive ones made out of gold. Not sure how the larger ones can fit in such a tiny pond, but for something that's this simple, it's a ton of fun. Am I cheating a bit? Whatever. Like a good menu, having a bit of variety never hurts. For those in the audience that haven't had the chance to play this game, Spiritfarer is a life sim platformer that I quite like. One of the enjoyable aspects of this game is the various activities that you can do to complete quests, which are done via minigames. To get wooden planks, you'll need to cut up logs. To get fabric, you'll need to do a timed button press on the mill. And to grow crops, you'll need to play Guitar Hero, etc, etc. Though for me, the first minigame you have access to is pretty evergreen when it comes to its entertainment value, and that is fishing. You'll acquire plenty of patrons for your mobile apartment complex, so the ability to get an infinite amount of food from the waters around you is pretty useful. I especially like the variety here since you have plenty of fish to catch. The type of fish that you can catch changes drastically between regions, which is a really nice touch, especially when you're trying to make the more exotic dishes for your patrons. Space. The final frontier. The endless expanse where anything can happen, and even the impossible can be found. Case in point, the people that made that underrated FPS, The Darkness 2, decided to make a live service game before everyone else jumped on that bandwagon. And they made a good game on top of that. Warframe is the type of game where it's hard to cut out the cool parts of the gameplay for visual aid, since anything that is in the menus looks pretty damn cool. There's a lot to like here with its combat and satisfying movement, but the one thing I especially like is the optional sandbox area that contains quite a few activities to do. I know that there's a lot of combat that can be done in these parts, but for me, the most noteworthy thing included here is the ability to stop at a lake and start fishing. In contrast to all those lame-o fishing games that use regular old hooks, Warframe innovates by specializing in spearfishing. You find your catch, you line up your target, and launch the spear to get that prey. Regardless of how technologically advanced the setting is, I have to admit, there's something primally satisfying about hitting a fish with a simple tool like a spear. And that's pretty cool. You know what this list is lacking in? Violence. Enough of these regular action games. Time to get some intense combat over here. Ultra Kill is an over-the-top shooter that is no slouch when it comes to catharsis, but it also excels when it comes to having extra content to go after. Some levels have secrets that lead to alternate areas or hidden boss fights, though the bits of content that I like the most are the handful of moments where the game just leans into the bizarre. One standout moment is that visual novel segment, which appears to be the origin point for that V1 body pillow on New Blood's website. That's pretty weird. Though for me, the one game mode that I'm intrigued by is the new area that was added in not too long ago in the recent content patch. If you find the alternate exit in 5-1, you'll find yourself in 5-S, the fishing pond. Here you'll have the simple goal of catching all 12 fish swimming around the local area to complete the level. The area itself even has Ultra Kill's love of secrets, with a hidden cave pond and a creepy blood pool to catch the last few fish in, one of which is a reference to Iron Lung and the FPS staple of including the dope fish, which are both pretty rad. Breath of the Wild has left quite an impact on the gaming industry, with an open world structure proving that you can make an open world that genuinely feels open. The influence runs deep enough to hit even the indie scene, with this cute little game called Sable, a Zelda clone that's more about exploration and puzzle solving than combat. The major gameplay loop is to explore this fantastical alien-like world and complete quests for locals to unlock masks. Though, unlike the ones from Termina, these ones are just cosmetic. The game has plenty of activities to do in its vast desert of an open world, so naturally there would be one thing that makes the most sense to do in a setting that is mostly covered in sand, and that would be fishing. Not fishing in a body of water, that would be standard and boring. Instead, you'll be sand fishing for a unique type of worm-like creature that lives in the sand. This is very much noteworthy for being a type of fish that you can catch anywhere, since there's no shortage of sand in this open world. You even get to manage an aquarium, well, more like an observatory, with all the fish that you catch. Hell, you can even get a mask for catching a specific array of fish, and that's a good sign of the amount of love put into this optional content. A while ago, I noticed a few indie games were coming out that embraced a weird style of 2D sprites moving around a 3D world. Was everyone just really nostalgic for Paper Mario around the same time? Anyhow, one of these games that spawned from this weird trend was Here Comes Nico, a game where you travel around the local area and help out your local peeps through some fun activities. And thankfully all these activities can be solved by jumping around. A few of these consist of platforming challenges, and others change things up with collecting items. Though my personal favorite thing to do in this jumping game was, fishing, where you help this dude catch some of the local fauna for a fish pond. But oh no, he lost his fishing hook. Well, the good news is that Nico can help out with that. Through the power of friendship and absurd grip strength, Nico can become the fishing hook to solve this guy's problems. Getting a glance at an NB grabbing a fish straight from the water is quite the sight to behold. It really shows that friendship can go a long way. Greek mythology is truly a well of intriguing concepts for modern interpretation. A mountainous cornucopia of unique ideas. That means that there is, to some extent, no limit to the activities that you can think up, especially in a game like Hades, a game taking place in the underworld, with such imaginative concepts for battles and enemy designs, so obviously the one thing that the developers would add in was fishing. I'm not sure if there was a lesser-known Greek legend that was involved with catching fish, but I guess Zagreus is living up to their potential by getting a myriad of fish from the lava pits of Tartarus to the misty waters of Elysium. There's even a dedicated boon for fishing via Poseidon, which is a pretty good sign as to how involved this activity was to the base game. So, what do you even do with your catch? Well, when you inevitably die, you can hand it off to the chef back at the House of Hades to get rare currencies as a reward. Goes to show how this optional minigame was definitely well integrated into Hades' masterful gameplay loop. Taking a detour to the land of the rising sun, we have the crazy world of Yakuza. On top of a satisfying combat engine and gripping story, these games offer a mountain of side content to sink your teeth into. There's plenty of stuff to do, from racing RC cars to bowling to disco dancing. Most of them are pretty fun, but I'm gonna be honest here, the one that stuck out to me was fishing. In a few spots on the map, there are a few places where you can drop a line and bait into the water and potentially catch some fish. The minigame itself is fairly relaxing, with some time spent waiting for a bite being closer to the realistic side of fishing. However, after you get a bite, this minigame remembers what franchise it's attached to and cranks up the adrenaline. You can get a wide variety of catches, from literal junk to exotic fishes. Heck, these fishes can even be exchanged for money, so it's nice to see all that money I spent on bait and better fishing rods can be treated like an investment rather than a money sink. Kinda like the rest of Yakuza's side content. Goes to show how even the tertiary content has this much effort put into it. Quick mention going to the recently shadow dropped darling, HiFi Rush, a game that's overflowing with fun ideas making for an entertaining action game. In the third level, you get to see one of the game's most innovative ideas on display by putting a fishing minigame here. You can't play it, but the fact that this game shows that there is no modern title that can go without fishing is honestly an accomplishment in and of itself. I just realized that we only have so much time left on this earth. We're left with the eternal struggle of making the most of the limited time we have with the people that we care about and the actions that we can do on this blue death orb that we all live on. Existential thoughts put off to the side, Majoras Mask is quite a unique game of making the most of the limited time that we all have before the moon crashes down and kills everyone. Thankfully though, the main character can turn back time, which is a pretty useful thing to have on hand when the desire to mess around with the side quests and minigames kick in, like the burning desire to bet on dog races, or messing around the target practicing, or in the number one on this list's case, fishing. Yeah, the world is ending. Yes, I could be going through the dungeons and saving everyone. However, I want to take the few days that I have in this bizarre place and enjoy that time to the fullest extent. The fishing ponds have a serene atmosphere, which is a nice contrast to the world ending around you. Kinda like a metaphor for playing video games in these trying times. And there's a good amount of fish to catch in this lake, and a nice touch is that there's a nice incorporation of Majora's Mask's time limit, by having certain fish only appear at specific times of day. There's plenty of enjoyable things that you can do in all of these games, but the fact that so many developers were able to zero in on the inherent entertainment of fishing in video games, it goes to show no matter what the genre is, that there is fun to be found in the simplest things, like catching fish. Or that it's easier to program compared to the more complicated parts of the main game, and that people really seem to like this extra content no matter what. Though the fact that this activity, of all things, was able to transcend so many different game genres is quite, fishy. Yeah, that's the joke I'm ending the video on. Happy April Fools, everyone.